All right, good morning, everyone. We're now approaching the 10 o'clock hour. Welcome to StormTALK. I'm with meteorologist Brian Good on this, 18th day of February. We're not done entirely with snow talk, just FYI. It's going to be a bit of a blend here today, and then at times, snow talk will be the headline, and at times, storm talk will be. It's that time of the year where we got to bounce back and forth. You guys have been here for a while, know how this goes, right? All right, obviously we have a lot to cover today, and I'm going to try to squeeze in as quickly as I can, but hopefully as clear as I can. As you guys know, you can always comment, and you already are, on the social media side, Facebook, Twitch, X, and YouTube especially. A lot of folks we have on YouTube there. Good morning, everybody. I see all your comments. Hope guys are doing well. Everyone's liking the warm weather, but everyone's getting the feeling, right? It's a little eerie, right? Just something feels a little off. And that's really by design. Anytime you get that feeling, that usually tells you the weather pattern is a little unusual, whether it's a cold snap that's unusually cold there into August or September, or unusually warm in January and February, it certainly gets your attention. And this is one of those patterns. Once again, it gets warmer air involved. We got to deal with thunderstorms. This is nothing new. We deal with this, I feel like, every single winter season, especially. But they're all uniquely different. They all have a little bit of a quirk to them as we head into this particular system. Let me show you where we're at in the short term, and then we'll get into the data that's coming in now, where we're thinking the best potential will be for any severe weather to take place as we head into your Thursday. And of course, not to be ignored, what will happen after it, which will certainly get your attention and get social media buzz as well in the coming days. All right, let's start with the wind outside. All our flags there, New Albany, flying around, right? I'll show you the wind gusts in a second. Temperatures outside, 62. 62. It's been a warm night. Didn't drop much at all. 16 Gordon, 16 to Bardstown. Cloudy at the moment, but I do think we'll get some sun a bit later. Wind gust, nothing terrible. I mean, it's not to advisory level, but it's certainly enough to really mess your hair up and get your attention. My hair was actually flat when I walked out the door this morning. This is what happens when you walk out. 25 current gusts in town. We may see that surge a bit when the sun tries to come out, which will be a bit later here this afternoon. We'll get into more of a partly cloudy setup. Indiana will be first to see that, more than Kentucky. Radar is showing some drizzle there in southern parts of the Commonwealth. If you're seeing that, let me know if you're in that area. I don't really see a ton of moisture with this, so I think overall it's going to be relatively minor for any rain chance today, but it's not zero, so we're going to hold on to it. There's actually a chance there could be a couple of smaller showers, even a rumble of thunder may form in the area that is going sunny later on. A little bit of instability tries to form, but it's nothing wild, but something we'll watch. I think it's going to be more of an Evansville and Paducah issue than it will be for us, but it's on the table. All right, water view shows. This is not the system, by the way, for tomorrow. This is the one that's ahead of it. It'll squeeze on by here for this afternoon tonight, but it does have a cold front. Very easy to see that boundary, right? That boundary is going to drag its tail across southern Kentucky around Lake Barkley all the way to Lake Cumberland. And that's where we're going to see the front kind of just park itself for the night. We'll be right here across the Kentucky-Tennessee border. That's where it's going to take a nap. As it does settle into that area of the region for tonight, we will likely see the wind relax. Everything kind of calms a bit. And during that calm period, that's when our humidity usually maxes out, is right before sunrise, especially. And if the skies do clear, which we see that trend happening, and this is crucial on that, if the skies do clear, we will see fog likely briefly develop before the wind steers up in a big way as we continue on into Thursday. But the fog is certainly one of the catalysts, too, on not only how things will play out for the storm potential, but also how warm we could potentially get for tomorrow. The storm system in question, though, is not too far away. It's back here into the Rockies, where right now there's no severe risk anywhere, really. As I mentioned, a little bit of lightning and thunder may form here along portions of the Mississippi junction there into the Ohio. That's possible, the tri-state. Otherwise, I think it'd be relatively quiet. The system here back in the Rockies, I mean, it's going to race quickly into areas of Missouri. What is interesting about it, though, and the reason why it's getting a lot of attention, as it moves across Missouri, it will actually deepen and it become what we call a negative tilt. It will drift a little bit northwest of Chicago before then it heads off to the east. It's a little bit of a bend that'll happen there into Missouri and Illinois. It's where the tilt, we call it negative tilt because if you were to draw a slant through it, it will allow for a line to form more in this fashion of thunderstorms, especially the ones during the day, versus what we call a positive tilt, the other direction. Typically, those are just squall lines that we see. So it's because of that negative tilt, we've got to always watch for any type of tornado potential that comes into play. But that's only just one factor, just the overall big picture setup of the storm. When you see that signal, then you're like, okay, that's something we got to pay attention to. But then you got to get into the weeds, get a little deeper into the data. And that's where sometimes it's a problem and sometimes it's a nothing burger. The severe risk, though, is placed really well, actually, where that tilt will happen into Missouri, into Chicago. When that happens, you're going to get an unstable atmosphere. You get into what I always call the American flag or the boxed area, the warm sector. And that's where you got to watch for any strong and severe weather that can certainly break out. It's a slight risk, level 2 out of the 5. Let's zoom in. All right, this is mainly for Indiana and northern Kentucky. And again, I think that's fair. As you're about to see in some of the data, that's the zone we're going to be watching, especially between Indianapolis area and maybe even our northern counties into wave country. Bit of a question on that. But I think Indianapolis is actually one of the spots that probably is more prone to especially tornado potential that I can see right now. Chicago to Indy is going to be an interesting setup there. But we are in the zone as well into northern Kentucky, including Louisville, slight risk. But we're all under some type of severe risk, even a lower end in our southern counties. But it's not zero, so you're in the risk, at least for some severe potential. As always, the Storm Prediction Center does a good job of breaking this down by category. Your tornado potential, slightly elevated, mainly again for that Indiana zone or Indiana counties towards Cincinnati. Yeah, that's the area to watch. Not as worried right now about that for central Kentucky. Louisville's kind of right on the edge, but if I had to put Louisville in one of the two categories, personally speaking, I would place it more into the lower end if I had to choose. And you'll, again, see the data on that. All right, the damage and wind potential, well, that's going to come into play with That's going to be an issue overall because the wind is going to be a problem all day tomorrow. So even though we're not going to get to 58 miles per hour in just general winds tomorrow, the thunderstorms could easily just push that up just another 10 miles per hour when they move through. So if you're already at 40 miles per hour, you increase it by 10 to 15. Now you're already getting close to 55 to 58. And that's the reason where the idea comes into play of damaging winds. You already got the gradient wind, but the storms add sometimes up to 20. It depends on the forward motion of the storm is kind of a rule of thumb. Sometimes you take the motion that it's moving and add that on to your current gust you're getting on gradient, and you can get that as a damaging wind potential. It's kind of a rough way to get a potential wind speed in a severe weather setup. Hail potential, not too worried about that. Right now, it'll only be for the cells that pop during the daytime, not the ones at night. So it's going to be your supercell potential that may form in our far northern areas. But these are not going to be very tall thunderstorms. So the hail potential, while they do get to the freezing level the way it's looking now, I don't think they're going to be relatively large stones at all. Okay, what I'm going to do, let me show you Futurecast first, because there's going to be a lot of that I'm going to throw at you, so I don't want to overwhelm you. That's important that I don't. So I'm going to do this one step at a time. Pay attention to where you're at on the map. Pay attention to the clock at the top. So as we get through the rest of the day today, the clearing is important. Where that line, if it stalls here a bit, that will not only affect temperature, but it could affect, again, how the fog scenario will play out for this evening. You got to get that clearing to move in, to get to the fog part. Areas that do clear out, which may only be just a small section of Indiana, but areas that do clear out will likely get the fog. If you hold on to clouds, you don't have to worry about this. Here is the overnight hours. We'll get to 6 a.m. Let me back that up, actually, because it won't really fast. So you see how it tries to clear us out after 8 p.m., and then not long after that, we will get the fog that will just fill in the gaps. And it's showing rain. This will likely be just spotty showers mixed in with some of the fog. Very soupy setup. I think Indiana will be fog, and then Kentucky will be clouds and spotty showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. I'm not going to rule that out for southern Kentucky. So one part of our viewing area will have one issue versus the other. It's the way it's looking. Louisville, again, always split on the edge of the whole idea. So I don't know yet if Louisville's going to be in the fog or the cloudy, rainy spot, but we'll worry about that as we evolve through the rest of the day. We've got to figure out how the satellite's going to trend, right? We're in that now casting mode, which is always fun. Okay, so here we are at 6 a.m. You're leaving work, heading off to school. No issues other than it will be a bit foggy in Indiana, and then you'll have some downpours in Kentucky, but nothing wild, all right? But it will be warm outside. So that, again, will be very similar to what we've had today. The same feeling you've had this morning, you'll have the same feeling again tomorrow. We evolve through the day, and then all of a sudden, the fog disperses. That's the warm front that passed through. It's heading northbound. As soon as the warm front begins to chug along, get some speed, that boundary again goes to take a nap tonight in southern Kentucky around Lake Cumberland. It will then shoot up into Indiana through lunch tomorrow. This is absolutely important. The speed of that warm front and where it's at during the afternoon hours tomorrow will really determine a lot of your tornado talk out of the system. But for us, it will also mean when the skies will clear out. This is one of those days where the sun is bad, yes. But at the same time, what is interesting about the scenario is when you get a warm front that passes through, you're going to clear the sky out. You're going to rapidly drop the dew point to the point where thunderstorms will have a tough time forming. We call that mixing out, and that's where the wind will get strong, but it may be our savior on preventing thunderstorms. That's only if you're south of the front. If you're near the front still, which may be Indianapolis to Cincinnati, at that point, you're still in a bad spot because the wind will actually turn right along the boundary. The wind is shifting there. That's a spot you don't want to be at. But if you're already in the warm sector, you're south of the warm front, yes, you're in that warm sector zone, but you may not have much to worry about, and we may get lucky here if we get into a sunny scenario fairly quick for midday. I'll explain a little more on moisture, and this will hopefully, because I know it's a little odd in saying the sun's going to come out. That means storms of fire, right? But not necessarily in this setup. I think the dew point will drop. I'll show you. All right, so storms will begin to fire. It's showing for several runs now. This is the herd model, by the way, that there will be some supercell action somewhere near I-70. This is where your tornado potential really will become a problem, is going to be the mid to late afternoon hours tomorrow. And we're going to know this fairly quick around lunch tomorrow. Actually, when we're on here tomorrow on the blog, we're going to know. We're going to know how this is going to play out. We're going to know where the warm front is. We're going to know if we got a problem or not. Right now, we can only go by model data because this, again, the storm is in Denver. The front hasn't settled yet for its nap. So we don't know how far north it will get. There is a buffer zone here, but I think I-70 is a fair spot right now to watch for supercells to form along it. But I can't rule out that our northern counties, Jackson, Lawrence, Jennings, into Cincinnati even, be aware that you still may be in that danger zone at the front is a little slow to get its act together. Meanwhile, for the rest of us, we may have nothing to worry about until we get the cold front, or really it's a dry line, but the push of drier air that'll move in, we'll call it the cold front in this sense, that will move in as we head into later Thursday night. So it may be quiet, maybe record warmth coming our way. I think the record of 73 is certainly reachable tomorrow, especially if we break out in sun fast enough. But then we get into Thursday night, then we'll deal with the actual line that'll move in. It'll be a broken line of cells. Again, most of this will be damaging winds, straight line winds that'll move through. You can get an isolated spin up in a line like this, but these are usually brief spin ups, and it's not guaranteed they even touch the ground, but it could still trigger a warning. So we need to watch that. Timing on that is going to be after sunset through about midnight. Are you going to have to worry about this at 4 o'clock in the morning? No, this will be out of here by 4 in the morning on Friday. This is going to be one of those setups where as you're going to bed tomorrow night, we still may be under the gun of watching what's going on at that point, but you won't have to stay up too late. Some of you will stay up, I know, but it's not going to be an all-nighter, which is good. This will move in fairly quick. All right, so that's the overall setup for the radar interpretation, all right? And that's loosely how I think this will play out. It's fair. Now let me show you the fog first, because this is, again, going to be a factor in the morning hours, because you get a fog layer that forms. If it's stubborn, doesn't want to clear out rapidly, that will be a catalyst for how the rest of the day will fall. So the fog is one aspect of it. Notice that the latest run is trying to aim it a little more for Indiana, not so much for Louisville. Why? It doesn't give us the clear sky and enough time tonight. It wants to hold on to the clouds long enough to where only the areas that clear will then replace that rapidly with fog. So Indiana, a little more prone to that. That's fair. We get toward midday, tomorrow morning, there's the fog. Now we get toward midday, and it quickly erodes away. And as I mentioned before, when you have that fog that disperses, you get into the main part of the day, you get sunny, the dew points will actually drop. So here they are, the dew points now. This is, again, a measurement. These are not temperatures. This is the measurement of moisture in the air. The easiest way I can ever explain dew point, and it's not always easy. You guys know, most of you know, as you go up, it gets colder, right? It's 62 degrees in Louisville now. As you go up, where the bottom of the clouds will form, where that temperature is as you go up, that is where the dew point is officially taken and displayed on our charts here. So if you end up with a dew point, if the temperature is 62 and you end up with a dew point of 62, that means the base of the cloud is on the ground. What do we call a cloud that forms right here at the ground level? I know you guys know this, so I won't give you the answer. I'll look for the chat. There's a bit of a delay, so I'll look. But obviously, if the dew point is lower, way lower than the temperature is at the ground level, that means the base of the cloud is way up there, which also means dry air. The atmosphere has so much to work with. And if you fill it all up with moisture, you got a problem, whether it's heavy rain, heavy snow, or severe weather and thunderstorms. If you shrink that down, you have a very limited amount of moisture to work with, and you squish it. These clouds, they gain height, but they can't get very tall. You cut down on the precipitation rate. You cut down on your severe risk as well. So the dew point absolutely is a good measurement. Thank you. You guys got it. It is fog. Yes, cloud that forms in the ground is fog. So dew point matters in that sense. So dew points in the morning will be actually close to the actual temperature, which again is the reason why we're thinking we're going to get some fog in the morning. They'll be matched nearly exact. But watch what happens at lunch. We get toward 11 a.m. We're at 60 for a dew point. Temperatures probably will be well into the 60s, so they'll be close together. But suddenly, as the fog disperses, the numbers drop. And it's right here where you see around Louisville to Cincinnati, dew points even drop into the 40s. When you see that happen, the sky will actually begin to clear. Yes, the wind will get strong, but with a lower dew point, you shrunk down your zone now for storms to form. That, again, could be our saving grace in Louisville, southern Indiana, and really most of the area, it'll be our saving grace because the warm front won't be too far to the north. We'll be in a zone where we've mixed the air down and the storms can't initiate. We've seen that happen many, many times, and temperatures tend to overachieve, by the way. So that's why I think the record warmth is certainly possible because you get dry air, the thermometer can go higher. So that's the reason why tomorrow could be a windy and warm day. Could even be a wind advisory scenario because it's going to be windy much today. I'll show you that too. It won't last very long. Eventually, the moisture will scoop back up again, and that's where we get into the line of storms as we head into the nighttime hours. And again, this is a dry line. Look at the dew points really crash on the other side of that. They do scoop up to around 60, which is enough for thunderstorms and severe weather to move through. Does that all make sense about the fog potential and the clearing and the mixing? Because I went really into the weeds, and I normally don't do that. But I really want to explain a little bit more of the meteorology side of this. That is something that that we'll be watching throughout the day tomorrow. It's going to take all of us as a team. We're going to all be watching all these different factors. We'll be watching dew point, fog, satellite, warm front. I mean, it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. I'm excited. Okay, everyone seems to be good. Okay, so that moves in and then it gets really, really dry, and then it gets blank. The map stops. Okay, let's look at the wind. All right, the wind relaxes tonight. All right, that's going to be enough to allow for the fog to form. Typically, you want to get under 5 miles per hour for fog. It's iffy. It's close. It's close. I think it's possible. Then we get into the daytime tomorrow. It's going to be windy set up throughout the entire day. Gusts again, I think 35 to 40 will be common, especially in southern Indiana and central Kentucky. Again, where the sun comes out. You don't see that strong wind up here behind the banner in Indiana. Why? Because that's where the warm front is. They will likely be a little bit more on the cloudier side and likely facing thunderstorms as well at that point. We will be likely in a much more of a sunnier setup, therefore windy, and that drier pocket sinks down. Then you switch over and you get the line of storms that will start to increase the wind once more into the evening hours. You can see even, again, don't take this verbatim, but it's a estimate by the model showing about 45 miles per hour. Again, you add about 10 to 15 to that line of storms, and that's where your wind gusts could briefly exceed 50 miles per hour, and that's where you could get a severe thunderstorm warning, possibly. But I don't think it's going to be a huge. What'd you say, Todd? I do understand. Okay, good. Thank you, Todd. As long as Todd is on board, then I think we're in good shape. We're in good shape. Tristan, good question there. Will the dew points drop in central Kentucky? Not as much, but you don't have a boundary nearby as well. The boundary is important. Again, this is where it gets confusing. You're going to have the dew point drop, but the boundary matters. You won't have anything really around you. So you're going to be just relatively mostly cloudy, partly sunny, but you won't have a lot of action on the radar because there's nothing to create a storm. You got to have something to lift the air up, right? There's nothing there. You don't have a trigger yet. The cold front hasn't arrived and the warm front is up in Indiana. So that's the reason why a good chunk of the area will be quiet. You don't want to be near this warm front tomorrow. If you take anything away from what I'm saying tomorrow, you don't want to be near this thing. And right now we're thinking it's going to be out of our area toward I-70. And even there, it's not going to be a catastrophic event here, guys. It's not a major outbreak that we're talking about. This is just the bare minimum really that you get into on a tornado potential. Nothing major. But at the same time, a tornado is a tornado. I get that. So I never want to downplay isolated tornadoes because I think if it hits you, then it's a big deal. So that's the reason why we got to watch that warm front. But right now we're thinking it'll be just out of our reach, but I can't guarantee that. That's our challenge to figure out tomorrow. I wish I knew, but unfortunately I can't see the future despite popular belief. Notice the wind Friday morning, by the way. This is a colder wind. I think temperatures will actually fall Friday. It's going to be a blustery, much colder feel on Friday. And with that wind chills probably will stay in the 30s for especially the first part of Friday. Eek. That's not going to be fun. All right. So rotation. All right. We can actually track this now where it at least tries to forecast potential rotation that may develop. So sped the clock up to 8:30 in the morning tomorrow. Let's advance it. We get toward 3 p.m. Now we see the first sign of what was, let me rewind that, sorry. Again, first sign of what could be a supercell. And again, the models, especially the HRRR, has been very keen on this I-70 corridor. I'm not saying that's a lock that will be where you're going to get any supercell action. It could produce a tornado warning at the very minimum. just because of the caution that the Weather Service may take. But there could be, some brief tornado action with that if that indeed forms. I just can't discount you guys if you're in Bedford, North Vernon, all the way to even Carrollton, just be extra on guard because that zone, I got to give that a buffer of roughly just north of Indy to just south of Indy. That's the zone we got to give a buffer to. But at southern Indiana and around Louisville and central Kentucky, right now, everything I've looked at really keeps us away from the warm front. So I don't see as much to worry about right now. And again, we're going to mix the air down, and that'll allow for us to have a break and enjoy a warm but windy afternoon. We continue this. Again, it takes it right into Indy, where we are at 5 p.m. We're going to know this quick. Again, tomorrow on the blog, we'll know where the warm front is and how this is going to play out. But this is just giving you a snapshot. Here's a sounding. Oh, you guys love soundings. Where's Chris Bowles at? He loves soundings. This is looking at the atmosphere again. A lot of data here. Ooh, there's a lot of data. Looking at this chart, I'll show you this often. Again, this is where we are here. This is where the airplanes fly up here. Green is moisture, red is temperature. Okay, so if they're smacked together, you're saturated. If there is a gap, and there is a gap, that is dry air right there in between that. But they begin to touch here in the lowest layers of the atmosphere. And that's the reason why, again, these will be relatively short, not to make fun of them because I'm short, relatively short thunderstorms. They're not going to be very tall. But the shear parameters, you probably can't see these numbers, but are up there, over 250 in the lower layers of the atmosphere, and helicity, which is, it's high. Don't get me wrong. That certainly gets your attention. So I do think that is something that is the reason why we got to watch for these quick rotating supercells. But they're very much what they call low top supercells that will develop. They can actually be very interesting to see from a distance because we will clear the sky out so much. So if there is one that is moving across Indiana, you may be able to see it, certainly in southern Indiana, maybe in Louisville, especially on our SkyTrack cameras. We may be able to see the tops of them way in the distance, but they're not going to be as tall as what we get in the summertime. These things can get all the way up to 50, 60,000 feet. They can get massive in the summer. Those are the big daddies. That's what you get in Oklahoma and Kansas often, those big giant supercells. We don't get those often here. So low top supercells in February, very common. But again, it's the spinning of the air we got to watch. All right, so that's some of the in-house data. CSU, you guys love looking at the AI stuff. So there's the tornado potential. It looks close to SBC, right? It's got a max point of Evansville, which is interesting still. There is your hail potential in Illinois and the damage and wind potential, again, around Evansville. In general, though, I think your trail potential is really going to be how the daytime plays out with the warm front. All right, let me give you the timing and then get to any questions you got before I get to the other side of the coin, which is we need to talk about. So we will run into at least some spotty showers again tomorrow morning as that warm front lifts on by. Can't rule it out. The rain chance, to be honest with you, we may be able to take that down between 12 and 4. It may be a 10 to 20%. That's possible. Chris Bowles is here. Good, Chris. Hope you like the sounding there. You get into the evening, we're going to spike that chance up. And again, I think fair to say 7 p.m. through about 1 a.m. is a window that you just need to be aware. That's where the last of the line will move through, and then we're done. And we're done with this. All right. So this is a nighttime event, which is a pain because our cameras can't do much at night. So we got to rely a lot on ground reports and radar. That's our main tool as we get into Thursday night. During the day, our main challenge is just the warm front. Where's it going to be? Otherwise, I think we're going to have, again, several hours where it's going to be quiet and you'll be able to enjoy. Rainfall amounts, Angela's asking. That's a good question because, again, they are not very tall. You're only going to get, these bursts of heavy rain when they move through, but they're moving quick. So the average I've seen is maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch, but not much more than that. And some of you may not even get that because they do move fast. So if they were taller, we would be a little more worried about heavier rain, but they don't have as much to pack. All right. Good question. Cameron, I wonder if this is a precursor to March. Well, this is going to be quite the roller coaster ride over the next several weeks. Your guys' emotions, my emotions are going to be wild, but your emotions are going to be really wild because it literally will be a rise up to thunderstorm potential. We drop with Arctic air and maybe some snow. We jump back up to another round of thunderstorms, and then we drop back down to another chance of snow. I see this going on all the way through the end of March. So this is going to be a tough 2 to 3 weeks of a lot of back and forth to deal with. So don't put your patio furniture out when these warm spells happen. All right. These are all little mini fall springs. Winter by far is not done. So buckle up, hang tight. Let's just hope that we don't, anytime we get these warm spouts, we just don't get a lot of severe weather. But I think that will be an issue almost every time. But that's the way it goes. That's nothing unusual. Everyone good? Type 4 if you understand everything I just explained. There will be a quiz. It'll pop up on the screen. Maybe. Hey, Todd. 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. That's my poker time. Well, Todd, you can still play poker. Let's see some 4s. Come on, let's get some more 4s in here in the chat. Even you quiet folks that just lurk and don't say anything. You just watch. I want to see some new names. Thanks, Tiffany. Ashley. Hello, Joyce. Crystal. I see Joel put Quattro. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Jazzy. Okay, good. That's important. I want you guys to be clear on this because this can get messy. As you just saw, there's a lot to the meteorology side of it, but it's nothing major, right? It's all little nuances, but it all matters. Everything I just explained, those little details do matter on how the day will play out. And be on guard. That's why we got the alert day out. Be on guard, but this is, again, not a major event. Okay, let's talk about the flip of the coin. We get into the weekend. We have the second low pressure that's sneaky. It's trying to cheat the system and catch a ride in the flow that our storm is doing that goes to Chicago for tomorrow. And it wants to catch that flow and sneak in. The problem is it actually will be weakening. So as it moves across the Tennessee Valley, there's not a lot of moisture with it, but I can't rule out a light rain snow mix Friday night and Saturday morning as it drifts on by just because it's nocturnal. Possible. But here's what gets interesting about this. As it moves to the other side of the Appalachians, it gets into the Atlantic, it will then become stronger. And you may even hear the term of bomb cyclone because it really gets deep here in the Atlantic. As it does so, it will absolutely drive down the cold air because it's a counterclockwise flow around it. It will drive down that Arctic air right into the Ohio Valley. And this is going to be interesting for the Northeast. They're going to be excited about it. But for us, we're right on the edge of that, but close enough that I do think we're going to get snow showers that will develop, especially along and east of 65 as we do Sunday night through Monday and maybe even Tuesday. Depends on how fast this moves away. If it sits there long enough, we may end up with snow showers all the way into Tuesday night, early Wednesday. So this is the boss. It'll be in charge of our weather for early next week. But because it gets so strong, again, it works as a team with Canada. It's a good partnership to allow for the cold air to really dive in. We may get lows back in the teens, wind chills, may even drop in the single digits in some areas. It's going to be a slap in the face. It's going to remind you, oh, yes, it is February. That will just click back again real quick here. Once it moves out of the way, well, guess what? We have another system that'll roll in. Now, the warming on that is crucial. Remember, cold air is heavy, right? Cold air is lazy, sluggish. I always say that. The idea is it will move out of the way before this system moves in at the end of next week to where it'll be rain, but there is a chance that we may not get the cold air out of the way in time. And therefore, this could get a little more interesting for the end of next week. Thursdays and Fridays overall for the next month, I think are going to be our busy days because we're getting into a rut that will repeat. We're going to end up with some type of system Thursdays and Fridays. We will likely drop in temperature over the weekends and early in the week, and we'll warm up in the middle of the weeks. That will likely be the trend. So if you're off days, Thursdays and Fridays, you're probably going to have active weather for all your off days for the next few weeks. If you're, most of you have weekends off. Weekends probably will feature a system leaving, probably colder weather. And if you have Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, you may end up having probably the warmest weather over the next few weeks. Weather patterns like this take about 2 weeks, sometimes 3 to shake up once they get into a rut. And I think this rut's going to be holding on for a while. All right, it moves on by, and then we'll have another one again. And as I mentioned, the end of the month, we'll have one in early March, mid-March. It will just keep repeating. Bryce accumulation, good question on that. That's going to be tough. We're now into the time of the year because we've got the warmer ground now at play. We don't have the frozen ground anymore. How things change, right? We don't have the frozen ground anymore. So now with the warmer ground scenario, if it's nocturnal snow, I think you can get grassy accumulations. But as far as major travel issues, right now they could be unlikely. We got to watch the snow showers for Monday. That may be a little tricky because we may be into the 20s in some areas when those fall. That may be the exception, Bryce. So I don't want to discount that for Monday. There could be some slick spots, especially bridges and overpasses, untreated roads. But this is not going to be, I don't see any big snow showing up yet. But as I always say, this time of the year, you're not going to see it. And if you do see it, don't trust it if it's far out. Bigger snow events from here on out, if they're going to happen, they're only going to show up in the roughly about a 12 to 36 hour window. They show up suddenly. Then you pay attention. If it's beyond that window, yeah, I would be suspect of it. But our forecast range on predicting winter storms from here on out, our ability to get that out to you all is going to be a little bit shortened than normal. Now, I will say, because we know the pattern repeats over and over, you'll have some idea, right? We'll have some days flagged that will be days to watch. But as far as anything bigger than just flurries, that will be harder to predict, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes. All right. Looking ahead into March, by the way, I just want to show this. This is the teleconnections. Here's your Arctic oscillation. Goes negative, goes below the black line. If you can see that, it's right there. Goes negative, and the NAO goes negative. What does that mean? That means blocking. That means Arctic air will be on the move. Well, we already know that. We just saw it on the charts that it will be available to be pulled down from Canada every time a system goes by. That's the reason why winter is going to be really tough to shake this year. Let's hope it's out of the way by Derby. Maybe. Here's the 10-day. I'm going to show you that. And then I got a few questions I got to get out of here because I rambled a lot today. But tomorrow is going to be all about radar tomorrow. We're not going to have a lot of time to talk about long-term tomorrow. So just a heads up there. We got a lot to focus on tomorrow. But move to 72. Again, record is 73 tomorrow. Reachable. And then cold as we get into the weekend. And we bounce back up. And then we fall back down and blah, blah, blah. Pretty self-explanatory, right? There will be a margin of error on all these systems because there's just too much moving, too much shaking and back and forth. Mistakes are going to happen. We're going to do our best to catch them as much as we can. I've seen it snow on Derby Day before. Well, there you go. What'd you say, Cameron? Florida has fallen iguanas tomorrow. Flying snowbirds, right? All right, guys, listen, I hope you guys are doing all right. And again, I don't know if you have anxiety with storms, I hope this calmed you down a little bit. Understand that it's not anything major, and just know that we're watching it. All right. And if we see a sign, we see a problem, we will alert you guys. Make sure to have ways to get notifications. Know where the radio, of course, is one of the best. Our app, of course, has specific notifications on it to notify your particular area of damaging weather that could be approaching. And if we see anything threatening, we will let you know. Fair enough? All right, guys, take care. Have a good rest of the day. And I'll see you guys coming up on midday at 11 a.m.